Hello, is this Dr. Otto's auto repair shop? This is Mrs. Wiggins. Is my car fixed yet?
America's Funniest Woman had the world in the palm of her hand. For years, she was the face of joy, the woman who could make an entire nation laugh until their sides hurt. But on one unforgettable night in 1977, laughter turned into something else, something raw, something devastating. When the cameras stopped rolling, the studio audience wasn't clapping. They weren't even laughing. They sat frozen in their seats, unsure if what they had just seen was comedy or a confession. The crew backstage wiped tears from their eyes. Critics would later call it the most powerful performance in television history.
Oh, well, don't you worry about it, kiddo, because this time tomorrow I'm going to be living it up in Hollywood, California, and you're going to be stuck right here just staring at the grimy wallpaper.
Awards would follow. That single sketch would be studied for decades, called television gold. But Carol Burnett, the woman at the center of it all, walked off stage, trembling. And she made a promise so personal, so final that she has kept it for 47 years. She swore she would never watch that episode. Not once. Not ever. Why? Because what millions of Americans saw that night wasn't just a comedy sketch. It was something far more dangerous. It was Carol Burnett stripping away every mask, every shield of humor she had ever built. It was the truth, unfiltered. And for the woman who had spent her whole life turning pain into laughter, it was the one moment too real, too unbearable, to face again.
Jugs of wine, loaves of bread, and thou. A toast, my darling, to a man and a woman. To consent. Let's go back to the jugs.
So what happened in those few minutes of live television that scarred Carol Burnett forever? To understand, you have to go back, long before the spotlight, long before the fame, to a little girl in San Antonio, Texas, who learned what pain was before she ever knew what love felt like. Picture this: a 2-year-old girl sitting by a dusty window, waiting for footsteps. Not the footsteps of love, not a parent coming home with open arms, but the footsteps of strangers who wandered in and out of her life. Her parents, both consumed by alcohol, were there in body but gone in spirit. Her father worked sporadically at a movie theater, his hands shaking too much to hold a steady job. Her mother lived in a fog of bitterness and broken dreams, too wounded by her own failures to see the little girl in front of her. Both would eventually die from their addictions, leaving behind not memories of warmth but scars of abandonment. Carol's world began in silence. Not peaceful silence, but the heavy, suffocating kind that fills a home where love is absent. And in that silence, Carol learned something that would shape her forever. Sometimes being invisible is the only way to survive. Yet even in that darkness, a spark appeared. She discovered laughter, first as a shield, then as a weapon. Even as a toddler, she learned that a well-timed giggle or silly face could pierce through the misery. It didn't fix anything, but for a fleeting second, it made life bearable. Her escape came when her grandmother, Mabel White, stepped in like an angel of last resort. She whisked Carol away to Hollywood, not the glamorous Hollywood of red carpets, but a rundown boarding house filled with forgotten souls. They survived on $20 a week. Toilet paper had to be stolen from movie theater bathrooms. Meals were meager. Life was desperate. But desperation is sometimes where magic begins. Carol created joy out of thin air. She invented an imaginary twin sister, Karen, who was everything she wasn't: confident, glamorous, adored. Carol would run up the fire escape, change her clothes, and reappear as Karen, so convincing that the adults in the house believed she was real. And then came the movies. Every Saturday, Carol and her grandmother scraped together 50 cents, over 10% of their income, for a ticket. For a few golden hours she was transported from peeling paint and hunger to a world of stars, music, and magic. One sound in particular changed her life forever: Johnny Weissmuller's iconic Tarzan yell. Carol went home and mimicked it endlessly. She didn't know it at the time, but she was training her lungs, her voice, her comedic timing. What started as a child's game would one day bring audiences to their knees in laughter. By the age of 7, she had learned the most important lesson of her life. Laughter could keep her spirit alive. But laughter was also becoming a mask, and one day, that mask would crack. Carol's dream wasn't comedy at first. She wanted to be a journalist, her mother's dream, inherited like an unfinished story. UCLA was the goal. But tuition cost $50 and Carol had $0. It looked like the dream was over before it began, until a stranger changed everything. To this day, no one knows his name. He handed Carol exactly $50, no strings attached. It was just enough to open the door to UCLA. Carol majored in journalism, but fate had other plans. She took one elective theater class, and her world shifted. On stage, she wasn't shy or poor or invisible. She was alive. She was unstoppable. Soon, another mysterious benefactor, this time a millionaire shipbuilder, gave her and her boyfriend $1,000 each to pursue Broadway. His only rules? Never reveal his name. Use the money only for New York, and if they succeeded, help others do the same. It was the kind of twist that sounds like fiction, but it was real. With $2,000 in hand, Carol headed east, ready to face a world she didn't yet realize was waiting for her. New York wasn't kind at first. Money vanished quickly. Carol nearly gave up. But then fate intervened again. A hurricane named Carol hit the coast. She took it as a sign to stay, and staying was the best decision she ever made. Her first big break was a ridiculous joke song about Secretary of State John Foster Dulles. It was silly, absurd, but Carol performed it so brilliantly it became her signature. Soon she was on the Ed Sullivan Show, and from there the nation couldn't get enough of her.
It's the Studebaker. Yeah, the one with the little doggy in the window that goes...
By the mid-1960s, Carol Burnett was unstoppable. And when the Carol Burnett Show premiered in 1967, history was made.
Come on, calm down. I want you to hear this new part that I put in. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
Eunice, I've heard this damn song so many times I can sing it in my sleep.
Me too. I gotta get something in my stomach.
Ed, sit down.
She wasn't just another star. She was a pioneer. The first woman to host her own primetime variety show, smashing through barriers in a male-dominated industry. For 11 seasons, 30 million people tuned in every week. The sketches, the songs, the playful chaos. This wasn't just entertainment. It was a cultural revolution. She and her team, Harvey Korman, Vicki Lawrence, Tim Conway, crafted magic that still influences comedy today. But in the midst of laughter, a storm was brewing. Carol's most famous recurring character, Eunice Higgins, carried an undercurrent of pain, disappointment, bitterness, dreams unfulfilled. Audiences laughed, but Carol knew that Eunice's struggles were closer to truth than anyone realized. And then came the night when truth and comedy collided. In 1977, the writers created a sketch called The Gong Show. It was simple enough. Eunice enters a low-rent talent competition, convinced it would be her ticket to fame. Normally, it would have been played for laughs, but this time there were no jokes, no funny voices, just raw desperation. As the cameras rolled, Carol transformed into Eunice, and something shifted. The audience, primed for comedy, instead watched a woman unravel. When the judges tore into her, mocking her looks, her voice, her very dreams, The humiliation was so real it became unbearable. The camera caught every flicker of devastation in Carol's eyes. And then came the silence. Eunice, alone on stage, sobbing. No punchline, no relief, just heartbreak. The audience didn't laugh. The crew didn't clap. They sat in stunned silence. For 7 minutes, America's funniest woman stopped being funny. And in those 7 minutes, Carol Burnett showed the world the truth she had spent her entire life hiding. Critics called it genius, revolutionary, one of the greatest performances in television history. But Carol never saw it that way. To her, it wasn't acting. It was her. Too raw, too painful, too close to home. She walked off stage and she swore to herself she would never watch that sketch. She has kept that promise for 47 years. Life tested Carol again and again. She lost her daughter, Carrie, after a battle with addiction and cancer. She took custody of her grandson when her youngest daughter faced her own struggles. Even in her 90s, Carol remains a symbol of resilience, appearing on shows like Better Call Saul and Palm Royale. But that one sketch remains untouchable, locked away. Too much of her soul lives inside it. And maybe that's the point. Some art isn't meant to be rewatched. Some performances aren't meant to be revisited, not even by the artist. Because sometimes the truth is too heavy to carry twice. Carol Burnett built her life on laughter, but her most unforgettable performance was the one time she didn't laugh at all. Now we know the haunting yet inspiring story of Carol Burnett, America's funniest woman, whose laughter once defined an era. It opens with the unforgettable night in 1977 when comedy turned into raw confession on live television, leaving the audience in stunned silence and critics calling it television gold. From there, it rewinds to Carol's painful childhood in San Antonio, shaped by absent alcoholic parents and rescued by her grandmother. It traces her unlikely rise, from surviving on pennies, inventing imaginary worlds, and mimicking Tarzan yells, to life-changing moments when anonymous benefactors gave her the chance to pursue her dream. We explored her meteoric success with The Carol Burnett Show, where 30 million Americans tuned in weekly, and the deeper truth hidden beneath her comedic characters, especially Eunice, who carried Carol's own scars. It then revisits the devastating 1977 sketch, the performance she swore never to watch again because it revealed too much of her true self. Finally, the story reflects on her personal tragedies, the loss of her daughter, raising her grandson, and the resilience that kept her going into her 90s. Even now, Carol Burnett remains a legend of comedy and survival, yet the one sketch that defined her greatest performance is the one she refuses to ever see again. And that's the untold truth of Carol Burnett. The night America's funniest woman dropped the mask and revealed something far deeper than comedy. A moment so raw, she's never watched it again.
Just reach right down in there and pick it up. Ah! Don't turn that ever. Don't turn it. Ow.
If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next hidden story from Hollywood's biggest legends. Drop a comment below. What do you think about Carol's decision to never rewatch that performance? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.